This is riveting.
That was necessary, okay? Thank you for my feelings. I was complimenting you.
Well, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and kick this off. It's 6:15, and I want you to know that I'm very much aware of the Thunder game, Marvin, that takes off. And
DVR, I'm okay.
I understand that there is a football game tonight of some consequence that we will do our best to try to let you all see. But at this time, it's my duty to turn the meeting over to President Shelby Duke of the library. Let her conduct her meeting.
Okay, call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Here.
Dement,
Here.
Duke,
Here.
Johnson, Norman.
Here.
Nation.
Here.
Wade.
Here.
Warner. Hall.
We do have a quorum. Tonight we have Pastor Brett Nation to give us our opening prayer.
Well, Father, we thank you so much for all that you've given us in 2012. We thank you for the many blessings that we received. And Lord, we just pray over this next year that you'd bless this council. Father, that you'd give us wisdom far beyond our years. We know, Lord, that there's things ahead we're yet to even see. But Lord, we know that you're going to guide and lead us in everything that we do. Be with all the leadership, be with the employees. Father, may it be the best year ever. We ask you to bless this meeting. May we walk in your wisdom and your knowledge. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Okay, item 1 is our consent agenda. Any items wishing to be removed?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Aye.
Duke,
Yes?
Norman.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Okay, item 4 is any comments from those assembled. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay. Item 5 is election of the library board secretary. Iva Sadler previously served in this position, and with her resignation from the council, we need a new library board secretary to be elected tonight. Do I have any nominations?
How about the one that took her place?
He's already hooked up on the planning commission. And I don't know anybody else that is.
It's really busy.
I nominate Marvin
I don't
to
even know that job.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to nominate Marvin Dement as the library board secretary.
Pad your resume.
Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Abstain.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Warner. Hall.
Yes.
Okay, item 6. Yes. Item 6 on our agenda is approval of the 2013 state aid agreement. We see this every year, and tonight we're going to be looking to receive 90% of that, and they're going to hold out the remaining 10% to make sure there's no state funding issues. So if you guys have any questions or comments about that?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Warner.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Okay, item 7 is the approval of disposal of materials. This is children's and adult books, movies, and audio as surplus property, as it is no longer useful for public purposes. And the city manager and the library department head has determined, they will determine the method of disposal.
Move the approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes?
Norman.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Warner.
Yes.
Hall.
Okay, item 8 on the agenda is the presentation of the oral quarterly report from Sherry Cowan, our head librarian.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Got a lot of things that have been happening the last few months. First off, I want to start with RIF. RIF was October 8th through the 12th. We had 832 books distributed between the daycare centers, licensed DHS daycare centers that we included this year, started something new. Christ Lutheran Child Learning Center, Head Start, Step by Step, and then the grades pre-K through 6 in the public schools. We'll keep doing this until we can. We have a ton of books left over that we purchased a couple of years ago from our $10,000 state aid, so we'll continue doing this until those run out. And then we'll do something different to keep literacy in the schools. Also, in October, I was notified by Oklahoma Department of Libraries that we were a recipient of a $3,000 collection enhancement grant. As I mentioned this already, this is in the works. I have sent off for Overdrive. It's a vendor that is through the Oklahoma Virtual Library Consortia. Basically, we will be a member of the same consortium that 29 other libraries are a part of in Oklahoma. We will be able to check out books that other libraries put in also. So whatever, say Stillwater or any other library, whatever they purchase, it'll be in the cloud, so to speak, and we can check out from them as they can check out from us, the books that we purchase. So it's gonna be one huge collection of books. So it's really kind of cool. $3,000 is gonna be the cost to get it started. Each consecutive year is $3,000, and it's based off of the population we serve. So, and that includes collection and maintenance fees. So that's gonna be from here on out. We'll start that. We'll keep that going. As you know, we have the haunted house on October 30th. This was our second annual haunted house. We had another great turnout. This year we had like 2,000 people. We had 1,000 last year. Had packed like only 800, or so. Had enough candy for 800. We ran out. We had to make a couple trips back. So basically, we packed 1,500 bags of goodies this year, like toy assortments and candy and all that. And we ran out at 6:30. So I don't know what we're gonna do for next year. We're probably gonna go 2,000 and hope that we make that. I don't know. Let's just hope we don't run out. I mean, that's good. That's good. But we hate being in that situation where we run out. But we made it better this year. The kids loved it, so they want us to do it again next year. Also, in October, I was notified of a Threats to Cure collection grant. It's for archival, basically photographs, materials that are in our collection that we don't circulate. These are old photos of the library. We have a paper signed by Andrew Carnegie, just stuffed away in a box in the library. Stuff that is not being well preserved. These things need to be preserved and need to be on display, I think, because that's the beginnings of our library. So basically what I did is I applied for this grant. First grant I'd ever written, so it was kind of interesting. I only had like 2 weeks to do it too. Anyways, I received it, got the Rebecca Elder from Amigos Library Services out of Texas is a preservation consultant. And she came in, did a site survey, basically found out what issues with the building structure, elements, storage supplies and things that we have, and then maybe possible solutions. Things that we can do to better house these materials. I have a full 17-page report. I was going to bring it tonight. I completely ran off and forgot it. I was going to bring it and give it to everybody. It's just so you know what's going on with the grant. But, and I think Mary has a copy. So if you guys wanted to see it, she has a copy of that. We had a City of Perry blood drive on December 11th. And as you know, our blood donations are kind of dwindling down. We had, at the last one, we had like 12. So basically what OVI has done, they have combined the City of Perry and ODOT together into one blood drive. Because it was such short notice last time, ODOT was not able to attend. Because if you know, they load up in a van and they go to wherever they gotta go to work. And they're gone by the time noon comes around, so they're not in town to give blood. So what we're gonna do is, I believe we have a meeting Thursday, you and I and Christy, the, the blood drive consultant. We're gonna all meet to try and come up with some ideas on ways to get better turnout. And maybe change the time, do early morning instead of afternoon or something like that. So we're gonna work on that and see if we can get some more blood donations. December 13th was our Christmas open house. We had a really busy day. We scheduled an open house, a book signing, and a magic show, basically all at the same time. But we had 200 that attended the open house, approximately. You got Fred Staff, he's from, he lives in Guatemala, but he was born and raised in Pawnee. Basically, he wrote a book called Treasures of Potosi? Roca's Treasures of Potosi. and another Young Bass Reeves book. He came, sold them as a bundle, he had a great turnout. People came in and did the book signing and all that, and he was there to tell a story about how he did the whole travels and all of that. It was really kind of cool. But he really loved it. We got a great comment on our Facebook page. He just loved the library. He loved it so much. But we had him here. We had Michael Corley out of Edmond did the magic show. We had about 55 attend that. And then we had the open house, which was from 3 to 6. So, and then we were able to go out to the parade afterwards, so it was kind of cool. And then on December 15th, we had a mother/grandmother and daughter high tea. We had 25 in attendance, which was better than last year. Basically, it's like the old, tip your finger high tea. And the kids got to learn about the tradition of the English high tea and got to do crafts and stuff afterwards. So it was really kind of cool. They all dressed up fancy and all of that. But if you notice in my report about my statistics, we're still breaking records. We're doing really good. We're busy. We put in, I just want to throw this in there, and this is my last thing. We put in a door counter in August to help me with my annual reports. It also has a chime that allows you to, it tells you when somebody comes in or out the door. Basically another safety feature. We are at almost 15,000 since August. So that's how much traffic goes through that library. So it kind of gives you an idea, if you really like thinking, about 2,500 or so a month traffic through there, that's people in and out. So that's pretty good. That's really good. So it kind of puts an idea how much the library is used. So that's it. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions of Sherry? Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, last item on our agenda.
Wish to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. All right, at this time, we call to order the regular meeting of the Perry Municipal Authority for January 7th, 2013, at 6:27. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Here.
Dement,
Here.
Duke,
Here.
Johnson, Norman,
Here.
Nation,
Here.
Wade,
Here.
Warner, Hall.
Here, we do have a quorum present. At this time, we've got item number 1, the consent agenda. If you'd like the single item removed from the consent agenda, feel free to do so.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Will there be discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Aye.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Item number 4, comments from those assembled. Anybody wish to make comments on items not on our PMA agenda, we'll take those at this time. Comments from those assembled. Seeing none, we'll move to proclamations, commendations, reports, and inquiries of the governing body, item number 5. Seeing none, we move to item number 6, new business. Seeing none, we move to item number 7, motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion second to adjourn, move to a vote.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Now we slow it down a bit. Call to order the regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Perry for January 7, 2013 at 6:28. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Here.
Dement,
Present.
Duke,
Here.
Johnson, Norman, Nation,
Here.
Wade,
Here.
Warner,
Here.
Hall.
Here, we'll move to item number 1, the consent agenda. Items wishing to be removed?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Shelby.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. We have a motion second to approve the consent agenda. Will there be discussion? Seeing none, votes in order.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman, Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Now we move to item number 4, comments from those assembled. Anybody wishing to make comments on items not on our city council agenda, we'll take those from you. Comments from those assembled? Comments from those assembled? Seeing none, we move to item number 5, proclamations, commendations, reports, inquiries of the governing body.
I have one.
Betty, fire away.
I lost my dog last Thursday. And I went in today and I gave Brenda a flyer with it. And I told her I was gonna be going out of town. And it was 30 minutes before I got a call that they had found my dog. So I wanna give the city a big hug for finding my dog for me. So,
Good story.
And I guess Brian chased it down too, so. We had the police department and everybody
Did you
else.
taser it?
We were chasing the dog. It was funny because I was getting phone calls. Are you chasing a person or a dog? I said, we're chasing the dogs.
Other accommodations, proclamations, reports, inquiries of the governing body. I just want to make one quick statement. I'm very much aware, and we have two of their members, or their pastor and their member, that the Perry Assembly of God Church is celebrating their 75th year in the city of Perry this year. And that is a good deal. And I was invited and had the privilege of going to kick at the to speak at the kickoff service on Sunday. And I just wanted to take a minute. You know, a lot of times we only see each other around this table at this table. And, you know, it's easy for us to forget that we all have jobs and duties that we perform on day to day. And it was a real pleasure to get to see the preacher of the church, Brett Nation, in action. He does a fine job for his congregation, performed a moving service, and it was a job well done. And so I think from time to time it would do us all good to take some time and recognize that we all, hopefully all of us, have things that we do for this community outside of this table. And so Brett, I want to commend you on a job well done and congratulate your congregation on 75 years.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Any other reports, inquiries, proclamations, commendations of the governing body? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6. And I have the pleasure, because Gordon is ill this evening. Normally, Gordon is our representative that serves on the Perry Memorial Hospital Trust Authority. I'm aware that, of course, as we all are, that Joe Dewar has moved on, and I know that the hospital has gone through an extensive search, trying to find a CEO to fill that spot. And after a very exhaustive and extensive search, this is what they came up with. We have the pleasure tonight to get to know, hopefully, Dean Turner, the new CEO at Perry Memorial Hospital. And Dean, if you would just stand at the podium and share a little bit about yourself, we would certainly appreciate it.
Okay. Well, you've seen the newspaper article, which was very flattering. I greatly appreciated that and having that written up. I'm excited to be here. My experience, probably what's not necessarily reflected there, has been mostly in smaller communities, in county and hospital districts. I got a hair a few years back that where the company I'd worked with for 18 years decided to sell itself, and when it sold itself, it went through a downsizing, and I was one of those lucky people after 18 years with them to be downsized out, that maybe I'd try my hand at a for-profit company. That lasted about 2 years. They didn't appreciate my honesty, I guess, of feeling that, you know, when you deal with things, you need to be upfront with people and ask questions, and if something doesn't seem right, you challenge it, you deal with that. So after 2 years, I found myself unemployed again, and began looking for other opportunities, and decided that really what moved me was working again in small communities and in community hospitals. That was one thing that drew me to Perry. The other being some family that lives in North Texas that is getting up in years, and really we wanted to be closer to them again and be able to respond to some of their needs, and this has offered a great opportunity. And then it didn't hurt that when we were interviewing and my wife came out, that she looked at me, and this was the sign she gave me, which she's a pretty hard sell on anything. And when she drove through the community and saw it and met the people, particularly the board members of the hospital, she said, you know, I like this area, we could live here. And so she's not here yet. She came out with me. We drove from South Carolina out here and spent a weekend, and kind of she wanted to make sure I was settled, and as if I couldn't do that myself, but make sure I was settled, and went back. And so now we're in the process of trying to look for a home and doing that, and I'm talking with her and sending her pictures and doing all kinds of things with that. Just a little bit about me. I've been in healthcare now for for 30-plus years. Started out in Dallas. Actually, when my wife and I were first married, we started out in Muskogee. And our oldest son was born in Shawnee. So we have some distant ties to the state that go back a long way. But I've been in healthcare for 30 years. I've worked in hospitals from Texas to Colorado to South Carolina. So I've gotten around a little bit in dealing with those facilities and learning about the people and the cultures there. So we're really, at this point, eager to be here. We see some great potential in the community and in the hospital. There's some great challenges there, but they're good people to work with. And that's what we're looking forward to doing, is working with those good people. I'm going to be very busy in the next 30 to 60 days just meeting people within this community. Met with my assistants there at the hospital and said, okay, I need a list of all the people I really need to meet with and talk to and get to know, and many of you are on that list. So I know we'll be getting to know each other more in the future. The hospital is going to be engaging in a strategic plan very shortly, and we're going to be soliciting information and comments from the community as to what they think the hospital should be and should do, and we'll have to put all that together with government regulation and how we can operate and make the best fit for the community. And if you've got any questions for me, I'd be happy to try to answer any of them.
Questions? Mr. Turner, on behalf of the entire city council, we couldn't be more happy that you found Perry. And you should know that we're proud to have a community hospital with the successes that they've experienced over the years. And we expect great things from you. So, and look forward to your quarterly reports that you'll be making in front of the council. Thank you. Welcome aboard. All right, at this time, we'll move to item number 8, which is consider approval of resolution 2013-01. I skipped 7? Well, sorry, Mary. You told me it was going to be short tonight, so that's pretty short. We'll move to item number 7, comments from the city manager.
I just wanted to just announce that at our next meeting, which is actually January 22nd, instead of the 21st because of MLK Day, but on January 22nd, we'll be having the public hearing on the request from Suddenlink for extending their license. And so we just wanted to point that out for not only the council, but those in the community that may have an interest in commenting or providing input, coming to the meeting, and sharing with us their perspectives on the cable company and how they've been performing. And I know some of the recent things that have happened with the cable company and you know, that there's been some comments from people that have been a little bit unhappy with them, but you know, those things happen. So the other thing is, I just wanted to let the council know that next week is the city managers conference in Stillwater, their winter conference, and Matt Mears and I will be attending that. It runs from Wednesday through Friday noon. And so we're going to go become educated a little bit more on some of the issues and things that are going on in the state and across the country. So just wanted to let everybody know that we'll be out of pocket, but not out of communication. We'll have our cell phones and we'll be in contact. And that's all I have.
Questions of the city manager?
When we have the public meeting for Suddenly, are we going to be voting, or is there going to be an item on the agenda to vote that night?
No, it's really just to discuss and
Okay.
we need to at that point frame up our proposal for them. But it's really just to receive comment from the public and to discuss the subject, also to let them speak.
Okay, so we probably have the following meeting.
It will be a process through the winter.
Okay.
Yes.
Other questions of the manager? Additional questions? All right, thank you, Mary. Now we'll move to item number 8, consider approval of resolution 2013-01, expressing the support of for the preservation of the tax-exempt financing, directing that a copy of the resolution be sent to the entire Oklahoma Congressional and Senate delegation. Council members, I ask that this be placed on the agenda. In my work with the Oklahoma Municipal League, They passed a similar resolution last month in anticipation of going over the fiscal cliff. Now, of course, we know that that's been put off in some form for a couple of months now. But one of the things on the table is the possibility that the tax exemption on municipal bonds would be taken away. And as you know, we do a lot of our financing through municipal bonds. We do that through municipal bonds because we can get them at a much lower rate than we can if we had to go to market with a tax qualified bond. What we'd like to do, and you have a copy of the resolution here, is very similar to those that have been sent out from other organizations across the state of Oklahoma that issue municipal bonds. We'd like your permission for me to sign this and send it to the congressional and Senate delegations, just expressing our desire and our need to have that tax exemption.
I make a motion we approve the resolution 2013.
Second.
Thank you, Conley. Thank you, Brad. We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution 2013-01 expressing support of the preservation of tax exempt financing. Will there be discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes. All right, now we move to item number 9, which is consider approval of resolution 2013-02, the mayor and city council of the city of Perry notifying the secretary of the Noble County Election Board that there will be a nonpartisan general election for the election of certain elected officials on Tuesday, April the 2nd, 2013, providing for the dates of the filing period for such general election, the offices to be filed, such general election, and the qualifications for the office. Council members, it's something that we go through every couple of years. This is to notify the need for a general election to have the election for the wards 1 through 4, post 2 council members, which would be this side of the table. We're requesting that the filing period be named February 4th, 5th, and 6th of 2013 from 8 a.m. to 5. And that the qualifications, you can see there, one change in the front of the table. There was a typo as it related to the resolution. The requirement for candidacy is that you are an actual resident of the ward for 1 year and not 6 months. And so I think you have a copy of the new resolution 2013-02 on your desk that makes that one change, changes it from the 6 months you saw in the prior agenda item to the 1 year.
Motion to approve resolution 2013-02.
Second.
Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Marvin. We have a motion and second to approve the resolution. Will there be discussion? Seeing none, you're voting on the resolution 2013-02. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes. Now we move to item number 10, which are items pertaining to a special election to be held April 2nd, 2013. Council members, I think we have about 3 different items that we want to talk about. And let me tell you why these come to the table. Obviously, if we have a desire to go to the voters to seek their approval on anything, a good time to do that is when we're having a general election, because we don't have to go the additional cost for offering up a special election. So that's why the timing is that it is. The reason that we'd like to get an up or down vote on your desire to send these issues to the citizens tonight is because we're up against, obviously, a filing period to notify the election board of our desire to put these questions on the ballot in April. So that's the reason that you're looking at them this evening. The first one is to consider approval of ordinance 2013-01 of the mayor and city council of the city of Perry. Now, folks, this is kind of long and it's kind of changed somewhat in format. So rather than reading it to you, let me just give you the 30,000-foot approach to this, and then I think we're going to get some more detail from Jim Franklin, who coincidentally chaired the freeholders group that originally wrote our city charter, which I think is very appropriate to hear from him. This relates to where or the distance that a city manager can live when they're serving as city manager for the city of Perry. I got quite a little history lesson from Bryce earlier today, and I'm sure I'd botch it up to go into detail, but to save you having to hear from him for a great length of time, let me just say that statutory managers, depending on whether they fall under a home rule or not, if they fall under a home rule, obviously where they live is dictated by the voters of that particular home rule. And the home rule of Perry, as defined by the last vote that we took, the last charter change, was that the city manager needed to live within 5 miles of the city limits of the city of Perry. The state statutory law only really requires, currently under a new change in the state law, that the city manager for a particular statutory city can live within 10 miles of the school district in which the city manager is serving. So that really broadens out that distance. Now, let me make a distinction here. Just because the state law says that, that does not make it the rule for Perry, because we operate under a home rule charter and our voters determine what it is absent of what the state law may say. But because of the change that took place in state law most recently, Bryson, in his great wisdom, thought that it may make sense, especially under the situation that we are with Mary just living 7 miles away from the city limits of the city of Perry, that this is a good time to potentially address whether or not we want to ask the voters if they want to change their feeling related to where the city, how far out the city manager could live. Now, with all that said, you were presented with a resolution that kind of opened that up to take where it mirrored what state law is. In the process of getting that out and letting the council members read it and the public read it, and my desire to have the freeholders take a look at it, Mr. Franklin evaluated it and actually came up with what I think is a much better plan and a much better solution, and has requested to present that to us this evening. I will tell you that it's my intent, after I've heard the plan that was proposed and now this new plan, which I think is a much better fit for the city of Perry, it's my intent to actually withdraw the agenda item that you have tonight in its form that was presented to you, and encourage you to adopt what we will refer to as the Franklin plan. And so with that, Jim, let me give you a few minutes, if you would, come to the podium and share with us the take that you have on this.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. I'm going to revisit what Chuck just covered with you on in a little bit different format. I'm going to try and give you a little bit of the history of the freeholders and the charter and its so forth. So at any rate, allow me to continue. In 2007, and I am going to get my cheaters on, a group of citizens referred to as freeholders drafted the charter of the city of Perry. At that time, a choice as to the form of local government was presented. Choice 1, home rule, where we could have the freedom to write our own laws, or choice 2, state statute, where the state laws for local government would apply. Home rule was chosen, which, as long as they are not counter to state law, allows us to draft rules that fit our community. When the draft was completed and signed into law, the freeholders became unemployed. Some of us have retained a sense of ownership and protectionism when it comes to this document. I come before you to share with you. Like our U.S. Constitution, our charter is a living, breathing document. Like the U.S. Constitution, the process for change was by intent made difficult. The charter can be changed, and if necessary for the community's welfare, must be changed. This is why we, the people, who take the time to become informed and to vote, have retained the privilege to change our charter at the ballot box. Periodically, special circumstances come up. This happens to be one. Before the council this evening is a proposal to change our charter providing residency options for our city manager. In 2008, a change to our charter was approved by the eligible voters, adding Ordinance 2008-13, allowing our city manager to live within 5 miles of the corporate boundaries of the city of Perry. In reference to 2008-13, would I prefer our city manager live within the corporate limits? Yes. Was I in favor of the city manager being able to live within 5 miles? No. However, I voted in favor of the amendment. The reasoning for a yes vote? As we are all aware, we are a small town and the city manager hiring process prior to this point has not been real successful. The 5 mile option becomes another benefit to offer a candidate for city manager during that hiring process. For some candidates who would like to live in a rural setting and need room for the horses they own, this extra benefit may make a difference in their decision. Please be aware that our city officials, with the exception of the members of the city council and the mayor, are not required to live within the corporate boundaries of the city. That's with the exception of. Allow me while I stumble. Okay. However, some firemen and police officers are required to be within a specific travel time of their respective workplaces, such as the firehouse and police facilities. In order to vote on local issues, one must be a resident living within the corporate boundaries of the city. According to the proposal on the agenda this evening, by state statute enacted in 2009, a statute city manager of a statute regulated community is allowed to live within the corporate boundaries of the city or within 10 miles of the school district boundaries or within the boundaries of an adjacent school district whose boundaries overlap the city school district boundaries of the city. What that says is that they can live just about anywhere they want to, and these were probably written for municipal or large city situations. If the citizens of Perry vote to adopt the state statute proposal, it may, by my rough calculations, and I didn't lay a tape measure on it, and I didn't look at the map, but just going 2 and 2 equals 6. Okay. If the citizens of Perry vote to adopt the state statute proposal, it may, by my rough calculations, allow the city manager to live as far away as Red Rock, Morrison, or Lucene. We are not bound by state statute. We are, by our charter, a city with a home rule form of government. In light of home rule, I would like to put forward an alternative to the state statute proposal that is on your agenda this evening. Proposed, a city manager who has, prior to appointment, maintained a residence in rural Noble County for 5 years or more, may, following appointment, continue to reside in their current residence if said residence is within 10 miles of the corporate boundaries of the city of Perry. If this residence is in another school district, the question of school attendance for their children is left to the discretion of the city manager and his or her family. For those of you who are unaware, our city manager and husband have lived and raised their children on a Noble County farm for more than 5 years. Their farm is situated approximately, is it 9.5? Approximately 9.5 miles east of Perry and just outside the school district boundaries. Their children are grown. Also be aware that our city manager continues to make plans to fulfill the current residency requirements of her contract and abide by the city charter of Perry. After visiting with those involved in the drafting of the state statute proposal and our city manager, it is my understanding that she has not requested special consideration in this matter from anyone and is in reality somewhat concerned about how this may appear to her employees and the citizens of Perry. That being said, both proposed changes will obviously result in personal benefit. I feel this proposal will help our city manager with a difficult situation while at the same time maintain the intent of Ordinance 2008-13, the 5 mile option for residency. To recap, the alternative proposal: a city manager who has prior to appointment maintained a residence in rural Noble County for 5 years or more, may, following appointment, continue to reside in his or her current residence if said residence is within 10 miles of the corporate boundaries of the city of Perry. If this residence is in another school district, the question of school attendance for their children is left to the discretion of the city manager and his or her family. The second part of that, Ordinance 2008-13, will remain in force. A city manager who has not prior appointment lived in rural Noble County for 5 years or more is subject to the residency requirements to maintain a residence in the city of Perry or within 5 miles of the corporate city limits. So what you have is the new and the existing will remain. This alternative proposal 1 allows some consideration for our current as well as our potential future city managers, while 2 maintaining the intent of Ordinance 2008-13. If either proposal is accepted by the council and the vote of the people is in favor, an amendment to her contract, the city manager's contract, will have to be prepared and approved by you, the city council. In addition, if both proposals are rejected by the council, our current city manager must comply with the present charter of the city of Perry and contract entered into at hiring. Being a home rule community allows us the right to choose those state statutes that are applicable and reject those that are not. In this particular instance, I do not believe it is in the best interest of our community to adopt the state statute city manager's residency rule. I urge the council to adopt the alternative proposal and send it to the citizens of Perry for their consideration at the ballot box. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Questions of Jim before he sits down. Does everybody understand what he's proposing? Okay. Thank you, Jim. Let me just, I want us to have as much discussion as necessary as related to this. And let me just set out the order as I understand it. First of all, several things have to happen if we want to do this. First of all, we'd have to approve the ordinance and the emergency. Secondly, we would have to approve the proposition. And thirdly, it would have to pass by a majority vote of the citizens of Perry in order for all of this to be enacted, okay? In the meantime, what happens in the meantime? In the meantime, our city manager is required contractually to become a resident within the city limits of the city of Perry by April 1st, okay? Which now the vote is on April 2nd. So let's look at let's look at two things that would happen. One, we pass all the ordinance tonight, the proposition, and the voters approve it on April the 2nd. She better have been spending the night in Perry on April 1st. Otherwise, she's in breach of our contract. If the voters don't approve this, she better be in that house April 2nd, and April 3rd, and April 4th, and everything thereafter. If this passes by the vote of the people, for the Mary situation, which Jim very well explained, in that she would live within 10 miles and has been a resident of Noble County for 5 years or more, then she can leave her residency that she established April 1st and return back to her family home. And that's what this is about. I think at times, and I was telling Mary this, we've spent a lot of time talking about this, and Jim is exactly right. This did not surface from Mary in any shape or form. It didn't surface from me in any shape or form. I told you how it surfaced with Bryce wanting to make you aware of the change in state law. But nonetheless, it is what it is, and this is a Mary provision. There's no doubt about it, and I want the public to know it loud and clear. And why I think I'm in favor of it, Jim, at least it going to the voters. Ultimately, it'll be the voters' decision. But why I'm in favor of approving the ordinance is that for all appearances, although she's new on the job in Perry, we are
I am pretty happy with her, and I think this council is too. And I think it's important that she be happy with us. And if the voters will approve it, and allow her to, to stay at her family home, then I think it's worthwhile. But I thought it was important, and Jim, I'm glad that you brought it up in this form, that this allows us, if you approve this tonight, it certainly would allow me and anybody else that would advocate for this to go on the speaking circuit and call it exactly what it is. That this is a special provision voted on by the citizens of Perry to allow Mary Rupp to continue to reside in her family home.
And if I might add, and in the future, if someone else who is residing in the county within that 10-mile residence and becomes city manager, is appointed as city manager, that would apply to that person also. So it does also apply to someone in the future potentially. And the other part is that that 5-mile rule is still intact and we haven't modified it at all.
With that, I'll throw it open to discussion.
What does the state statute say about the intent of residency?
Well, the statute doesn't say anything, but the case law, the cases that have been enacted, that have been reviewed by, say, the Oklahoma Supreme Court, do speak to residency. Residency is an intent to reside. It's a whole lot more about intent. There are visible signs as to whether you're a resident. They look at, do you have a legitimate place where you're living that you can say is your resident? In one case, they found that Gold's Gym was not, because that's what the guy was claiming, that he was a resident of Gold's Gym. And I even think they gave him a bed up there, but they said that they found that to be a fraud. I think it could be where's your voting status, where you get mail, but the cases really do talk about intent. But if it's challenged, they will look at the factors. Do you own a property? Do you lease a property? Where's your voting registration? Where do you get mail? They will look at a series of factors. I will tell you that it is liberal. I mean, I've seen cases where you kind of wince and say that didn't look like residence. It didn't look like residency to me, when the court has found that yes, it is residency. But they will not allow a fraud to occur. So I wouldn't tell you, it doesn't really come from legislative history, and it doesn't come from the statute, but it does come from cases which contested residency. Often in an election cycle, when one person has alleged, you're not a resident, in that period of time, you've got the filing period, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. By Friday, you have to make a contest. If you don't make a contest and you don't make a protest, then that particular issue is it's waived. Now, the other issue is that the council themselves can determine who are the members. So let's say if the council determined that some member was not a resident, for whatever reason, whatever the facts are, you're not a resident, it could make that determination, and it could find that a person is no longer a resident and could appoint someone else. And the courts give weight to the council and its determination of who it finds is the proper officer. So that's generally about everything, that I know about it without some more research.
Well, this was changed 3 years ago, is that correct?
Yes, the charter was passed. We changed it in 2008, and then in 2009, that state law provision came through. But like Jim said, it only applies to statutory city manager form of governments, which we are not. We are a charter form of government. our provision is as written, within 5 miles. The one thing that I did, and it's perhaps the only time that I ever shortened anything, in both the ordinance and in the proposition, you do have those in front of you. I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity to look at it, but I did kind of take exactly what Jim had said and made a change both to the ordinance and the proposition, where the 5 mile is retained and within 10 miles if you've resided at that residence for more than 5 years. I was on vacation over Florida. There were 2 things that I thought about when I was on vacation, 3 things. One was that you have till January 18th to get any kind of proposed question to the election board. In a number of my cities, I've informed them of that, and I've made suggestions in several of them, and this is just one of them. And quite frankly, both of them were just things that I thought about while on vacation. I got back on Monday of last week. We talked about it. I drafted it. Then was New Year's. I drafted it on Wednesday, and the agenda was shot out on Thursday. And if you hate them, I understand. It's just, kind of give you the dates, that's the date when you have to have it done, and these were the ideas I had for this community.
See, the way I feel about it, it doesn't matter to me whether it's 5 miles, 10 miles, or 20 miles. As long as you're already giving them 5 miles, you might as well give them 20 miles. I mean, to me it's relative. They just need to be able to get in town quickly, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the one thing about Jim's proposal is instead of, he's used the scalpel to design an amendment. And, it's a very, very fine scalpel. It meets the current issue, but, and I will reiterate what Jim said, Mary, who hasn't spoken yet, but when I brought this up, she said, well, I don't know that that's that good of an idea. And I don't know that we should politically do that. And I said, well, let's just, let's throw it out there, discuss what that law is, and see if the council is willing to put the question out. And of course, you don't have to support it. All you have to do is put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
Well, I have 2 comments. First of which, on a lighter side, Bryce might have had a really bad vacation, if that's what he was thinking about. But that being said, I don't think it's too much for us to ask the city manager to be a voting citizen of the city. With that being said, that's kind of my opinion, but I don't think I'm not gonna stand in the way of letting the people have an election. I'm never opposed to that, of the people having an election and voting, because they know a lot more about what they want than us telling them what they want. So, I guess I've tipped my hand kind of what I'm gonna do there, but it's, I just kind of want to express my opinion on
I
that.
agree with you, Marvin, because when we brought this up before, I was against it, very much against it. But I was outvoted, and so we put it up for vote, and it went over real well. So, I'm here to do what the people want to do. So I'm willing to put it up for a vote.
I agree with Marvin also, but I have another question. We actually don't know if there have been any other changes to state law that we'll have to modify the charter. So maybe we should put it on the agenda to reevaluate the charter. Because we don't know what's coming up that we're gonna have to change this.
Yeah, there really aren't, I don't want to be overly inclusive. I don't know that this state law doesn't require us to change the charter. This state law doesn't even apply to us. It's just an idea, and the idea is, would you like to change the charter? Laws on membership and, membership of the council, qualifications for office, qualifications for your officers, meeting dates, meeting times, those kind of things are legally and historically found by the courts to be matters of purely municipal interest. And in city charters, it's purely municipal interest, and the state isn't going to supersede that. On other issues like open meeting law, Open Records Act, financial compliance, is the big one. Those are issues of statewide compliance, and you could try to draft your charter to not try to comply with them, but it would be found to be wrong, and it would be struck down because those are laws which are of statewide compliance. Now, I can't do that absolutely. Is there something, in state law that we ought to adopt? But I'm not really aware of anything. In anything that I think our charter, together with the state law, I think they work well together.
There is a provision in the charter, though, that I think he's referred to
For
before.
a re-review and.
Within 10 years. is that
Yeah, within
right?
10 years, but, it can be done, it can be done at an earlier time.
Anytime someone calls for it.
Which actually means every 2.5 councils,
Yeah,
that's when you're mandated to review the charter.
That's right.
So there'll be quite a few of us that won't be in on that. But I believe you have to appoint a panel, is that right?
yeah, you would, if you're gonna do a charter review, and I'd have to look at it, it's amendment of charter, it goes through the same process. Now, the council can set up, the council can request charter changes, but the publication is very special. It has to be published according to a timetable. In fact, if you pass this, it has to be published several times according to a timetable, which I just made the note on the city clerk's deal, reminding her if something passed here, we're gonna have to talk about that timetable.
This passed in '06, our charter,
07, and the amendment was in 08.
so we actually have 4 years before we are required to review it.
That's correct. Yeah.
I'd like to put it up for election, but I really don't care which one we put up.
Well, it would seem, I like, in that he brought it up, I like Jim's version.
Okay.
I think it's using a scalpel. It's consistent with what the council and what the public originally said. And if they want to provide this exception, because that's what it is, if they want to provide this exception, it'll apply. I don't think it's just an exception for Mary. We have other members of the staff that may want to move, and it could apply to them in the future.
If we had a city manager, so we had a change, we don't want that. But if we had a change, the city manager came and lived here for 5 years, after they lived here for 5 years, could they move outside of that boundary, or does it have to be?
No,
That
they
would
have
go 5
to,
years
have they
upon.
have to have resided in that residence that's within,
employment.
prior to employment,
Okay.
yes.
That's
And I think if you look at the language in the ordinance, provided however, any person appointed city manager may reside within 10 miles of the corporate limits of the city in the event such appointee has resided at such residence for more than 5 years prior to the appointment. And I think that says it.
So then, if we were to bring this up, we wanted to go with the Franklin plan, then, this is done. How do we bring that new?
That's what's presented on your table. The Franklin plan is it has the new ordinance number 2013-01 is the Franklin plan. The one that you have on your table
Okay.
is the Franklin plan.
And in my opinion, you can adopt it tonight. The purpose of the open meeting law is to give folks notice, okay? We gave them notice that we were talking about amending Article 3, Section 1 of the city charter, and anybody that wants to be heard had the ability to come here. We can amend any ordinance or any provision at any time. We have met the terms of the open meeting law agenda requirements, and if you want to, you can adopt this ordinance.
And let me state the obvious for the purpose of giving a little bit of history too, just so that we're all clear. The obvious is that although you might approve the ordinance tonight, you might approve the proposition, that doesn't get it done. It's the vote of the people that gets it done. For the purpose of history, when we did the amendment in 2008, and I was on there and Betty was on there at the time, there were actually 2 amendments offered in a session just like this around the council table. And one made it to the vote of the people and one didn't. And so, it can stop here tonight with a no vote on the ordinance, which in turn wouldn't be a need to vote on the proposition. Or it can be sent all the way through to the voters. And we do have precedence for an idea coming to this council table and not making it to the vote of the people. So just FYI.
Make a motion, we approve the ordinance.
I'll second it.
We have a motion second to approve the ordinance 2013-01. We'll give time for continued discussion. Seeing none, we move to a vote.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
No.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes. Now we need a motion on the emergency.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion second on the emergency. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
No.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes. Now we entertain a motion on the proposition to be filed with the
moved.
clerk.
Second.
A motion is second on the proposition.
That's number C.
C. Okay. Who made the motion?
Conley or Brett? Who made the motion?
No, I didn't.
Who seconded?
Your
Bill?
proposition has
The proposition,
It's number C. It's number.
yeah, well, we have proposition 1 and proposition 2, so we're
Yeah.
actually voting on proposition 1.
I don't have any problem with that
Okay.
voting now. I think it's better.
Right, just for clarification, we're gonna stick with it, we're voting on the proposition 1, which is to put the vote that we talked about for the residing within 5 miles of Noble County to the vote of the people, okay?
5 miles of Noble County.
After you've been a resident of Noble County
Okay.
for 5, you can live within 10 miles.
Okay.
That proposition, we're taking proposition 1. We'll come back to the same document, maybe, depending on discussion, to proposition 2. Everybody, does everybody understand what we're voting on? And you agree if that was your motion and your second? Further discussion? Everybody understand what we're voting on? Okay, let's move to a vote.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
No.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes. All right, that was item 10A. Now we move to item 10B, which is consideration of ordinance number 2013-02, amending chapter 7 of the Perry Municipal Code by the amendment of sections 7602, 603, 604, and 623. Deleting apartments from the definition of hotel, repeal all references to the permanent resident exemption, increasing hotel motel tax from 5% to 8%. There's some additional information that the council members have received, but at this time I believe I'll let Mary lead the discussion as it relates to ordinance 2013-02.
As you all will recall, back in December on the 3rd, when this council met, we entered into an agreement with John Vance to perform certain things. We had obligations under that agreement with John Vance in regard to his purchase of property out in the commercial park to relocate his dealership. The proposed road that's on the south side of the property that he has entered into a contract with the city of Perry to purchase would be the city of Perry's responsibility. And also, a part of that agreement was for the city of Perry to make our best efforts to find funding for the north-south access road, or frontage road, or however you want to say. The total for those two is about $750,000 for the two together. obviously, that is a pretty significant amount of money. And it's one of those that you can't just go to the budget and say, Meredith, where can we get this, or Russ. And so, when you look at the options that we have for funding, the commitment that we made to Mr. Vance, we're pretty limited in what we can do. And with this election, with the general election coming, it provides an opportunity to look at the option of increasing the hotel tax and utilizing that additional hotel tax in an effort to finance the road projects that we have either committed to, in the case of the east-west road, and pledged our best efforts to in regard to the north-south road. And it would allow us to fulfill what we have actually committed to do. Reserves would be an option, but that takes a pretty big hit on our reserves. And I'm a fairly conservative, well, I am a conservative budgeter, and I always am a proponent of making sure that your reserves are used for what they're intended, and that's usually emergencies, in my opinion. So when you look at other options, there aren't a whole lot, especially anything that can, be pulled together in a fairly short period of time. Based on the projections that Russ has provided us, it would take approximately 7 to 10 years, depending on the receipts of the hotel tax, the 3% extra, to pay for the road improvements that we have committed to in the commercial park. To me, this makes a lot of sense to put this out for the voters to vote on. It's one of those that we're lucky enough that we have a significant oil and gas boom, and there are lots of motel rooms that are being rented night after night after night. And so this is a good opportunity to take advantage of that. The other thing is that it's not the Perry citizens that are paying for this. It's basically the visitors to the community that pay for this. And I certainly, whether or not it's the citizens or whether it's visitors or whoever, it would be my opinion that this would be the best way to bring together the amount of money that we need to fulfill our commitment with the contract we've entered into with John Vance. And I would recommend approval.
Let me just tell you, again, we'll do just like we did last time. We'll give you plenty of time for discussion. I won't cut anybody off. There is another aspect to this, another side of this that I think is important that you all get a grasp of, because it was quite shocking to me, actually. And that's dealing with this residency issue. And the fact of the matter is, as you alluded to, we do have the oil and gas boom, and quite frankly, the increase in hotel motel tax, the sizable increase that we've seen in recent weeks and months, we believe is related to the oil and gas industry folks that are staying in our hotels. The residency issue is that if they stay there if a particular person stays in a hotel room for a period of 30 days or longer, they can establish residency. And if they establish residency, then they no longer have to pay the hotel motel tax. And so if we believe that this this boom is going to last 5 or 6 or 7 years, that we could potentially be cutting ourselves out of a lot of hotel motel tax, because believe me, they will establish a residency because it saves on the oil and gas companies to do so. It makes sense. And Bryce, in writing this resolution, has written into it that the residency issue be addressed, and that they are not allowed
to declare residency regardless of the time frame that they stay in the hotel. So this actually has two forms to it. One is to protect the sales tax through the residency issue, and the other is whether or not we want to raise it an additional 3%. So let me try to head off at least one question that I'm certain that some of you may have. I certainly have. You know, again, restating the obvious, and Mary, you're exactly right, that when we've been down this road, when we passed it the first time, for those of us that were around, it's the visitors that, you know, that actually pay for this. Where do we stand as far as hotel motel tax rate in the area? I can tell you that Mary has spent an enormous amount of time studying that. She has the hotel motel tax rates for the entire state of Oklahoma, so we know exactly what that is. I can tell you that Oklahoma City is running 5 1/4. I can tell you 5 1/2. Is it Tulsa that's 5 1/4? 5. The 8% that we're looking to ask the voters to take us to matches with Ponca City, and it matches with Enid and Muskogee. I will tell you that those are the highest rates in the state of Oklahoma. Those are the highest hotel motel tax rates in the state of Oklahoma at 8%. Okay, there's no reason to cover it up. It is what it is. Guthrie is closer to 4. Give me the number.
4.
4. It's 4 exactly.
Stillwater is 4.
And Stillwater is 4. So that kind of gives you the geographic look. If you're coming in from Kansas and you're looking at looking at Ponca City, or you're coming in from the west, you look at Enid, they're at 8. And the more you get to central Oklahoma or the metropolitan areas, it is not quite as big. Of course, it's economies of scale too. You know, they raise a lot of dollars because they have a bigger draw, of course, than we would. So should we be concerned about 8, and what do the hotel owners think about this? Well, let me tell you, as somebody that worked with the hotel owners the first time we came at 5, I can tell you that all of them, with the exception of one, are going to tell you the same thing that they told us back when we passed the 5%, and that is, oh, it's going to hurt us. It's going to hurt us. People are going to go down the road and they're going to go somewhere else. And the voters said, no, it's not going to hurt you. And I think our numbers reflect, that it hasn't hurt them. In fact, they're doing rather well. I told you that there was one exception. We do have a hotel owner that actually came to me and said, while none of them are excited about paying the taxes, they do see that if this tax was used as it's intended, and that is to build the access road for the commercial park, that does nothing but bring more potential suitors to them. And they see that as a great partnership. When you bring potentially restaurants and more visitors to the commercial park, that has the potential of calling people off the highway to spend the night as well, and they see the value in that. This is not a fall on the sword issue for me, other than it is a good opportunity for us to raise some money to be able to fund these improvements out at the commercial park. Mary said that we don't have a whole lot of options available to us, and this council, and I know you are too, you just let it get past you, was that this council did approve for us to seek the TIF district. And that is certainly is and remains an option. The reason that the TIF district has been set on hold temporarily is to see what the council's pleasure is as it relates to this issue tonight. Because this is a cheaper, less expensive approach than going through the TIF district, where we have to pay attorneys and bond counsel to be able to put that together. While the council was all in agreement of ultimately funding the creation of the TIF district, if there's a possibility that the voters would approve this, it can save the preparation cost associated with creating the TIF. And so it makes sense to see if that's something that you want to put to the voters tonight as it relates to increasing the hotel motel tax. With that, I would open it up to any questions or comments the council may have, and we'll open it up to our guests as well.
If a person comes and stays at a hotel, what is the total amount of tax? Do we know what that would be that they would have to pay?
Will it be the city, state, and county tax plus the hotel tax?
So they're gonna be like 14?
And,
17 and a half or 17 and a quarter or something.
You know, it's, let's see, what the state, with the new sales tax that we put on for the ambulance as a quarter, so it'd be 9 and a quarter.
Yep.
Plus 5,
Plus
right?
5, okay, yeah.
That's correct, yes.
So it'll be 13.
14 and a
Right, and when we're looking at the hotel motel tax numbers that Mary got statewide, we didn't match that up with whatever local taxes, they had in their communities. So I couldn't give you the comparison today of the taxes in the communities.
Is it possible to split these up and do one on the tax and then one on the residency? I'm scared that if we put them together, if somebody doesn't like one of them, they're gonna vote both of them down, or,
Oh, I would suggest the public's, I would think the public's smarter than that. I mean, the two questions are completely separate, and this particular question would impact very few residents. And I know that there's an aversion to taxes. The problem is, the quicker we can build, we're already committed to do the east-west road. But the quicker we can build the north-south access road, the quicker we live up to our promise, and the quicker we get the type of development that I think we've all heard will come. And I think that if we have this opportunity, it would be imprudent to use our reserve. If the public permits it, it would be, this would be a great way to fund that. The money goes right back into the very purpose of the hotel tax, and that's bringing folks here, and we don't have to take it from our carry forward, which, like Mary said, should, would be best if it was reserved for emergencies. And once again, just like the other question, all you have to do is tee it up. If the public doesn't want it, they're gonna strike it.
well, I just hate to have the residency struck down, because I think that needs to be passed. And I can see people maybe not wanting to go up higher than Stillwater or someplace else like that. Thinking that, well, like the restaurants may not want that, because they'll think, well, they'll just go on down the road and they won't stop here. I don't know.
I think that, it's easy to say that, I think in practicality, it doesn't happen. And I actually was concerned about, how to explain that practical side of it. And I called, I have a relationship with the mayor of Ponca City. And I called him today over lunch, and I asked him, I said, tell me what happened with you all. And they were in a similar situation, needing more money for development. They actually put theirs into their ballpark. They were at 5 and they went to 8. And he said, we're gonna go back for more. He said it didn't have any impact, a negative impact on their nights. And then he even put it back to me what I was thinking, and I hate it when people can look into my mind. He said, how many times in your travels, have you pulled over and actually said, what's your tax rate? What's your tax rate? And what is it 20 miles down the road? It's just something that we practically don't do. You look at resort fees. I don't know. I only did it recently because I knew that this was coming up when I took my ski trip to Steamboat, over Christmas. I had no idea that I was paying an 18% resort fee. I had no idea. I never thought to even ask. Now, once I looked at it, I kind of went, ew, but I'll go back next year. It's just, it's a cost, and I think,
that's not, my discussion tonight is not intended to make you feel any better. And I think, and I think you're right. I think that it's quick as people that are charged with the revenues and expenses of the city, that we certainly say out loud, well, is there a risk that somebody's gonna go to Stillwater and spend the night, because our hotel motel tax is 8%? And I think in all practicality, the answer is no. Is my belief and the belief of many others. And I think if you look at your own practices, you would come to the same conclusion. That's the way I would answer that.
Well, I know we get a lot of overflow from Stillwater, or we did for a long time. They've been building a lot of new hotels over there, so I don't know how long that's gonna keep going.
Well, maybe somebody has better insight than I do. The overflow that I think we were getting from Stillwater was related to football games. We're not having, an issue to speak of like that now as it relates specifically to the oil and gas boom.
How much additional money will we raise from this? How much can we?
It's in your packet.
project?
Conservatively, it's in your packet and you can see that, but conservatively, we're looking at 72,000 conservatively and as high as 145. Not bad from memory, huh?
150 based on the last 3 months, but that's a
Memory,
little excessive.
$5,000.
Yes, I know. But you're a banker.
I'm so proud of
You're
myself
supposed to
too.
be-
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
You gotta learn those funny stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I
That's
know,
true.
I know.
Close enough. Karen, did you have a comment?
My question would be, does all of the 8% now go to solve this issue as far as paving goes? Are we gonna leave the 5% funding what is already being funded, so to speak?
That's a good question.
Yeah, fair question. I've got to answer it this way, in all fairness. This council can decide whatever they want to do with the 8% at any time. Or the 5% as it is today, okay? But to get more depth into your question, I don't believe that it's the intent of this council to change the flow of the 5% that's happening now. That to utilize the 3% that would be the increase for the new improvements out the commercial park. But again, let me tell you that this council by vote can redirect those monies at any time under the terms of the purpose of the question.
Right.
Is that a fair way to
and-
answer your question?
Yes, the original question went for historical preservation
And
and
economic
for
development.
economic development. So, at some point in time, I understand that that could be changed to say that is economic development to redo the road, and I would not have a problem with that. It was just a question.
Yep.
I think the other thing would be, once the road is built, okay, then again, the council will address where that extra 3% or 5% or whatever that figure is that they would determine where that goes.
That's correct. And in fact, we were talking about this, I was talking with David about this before the meeting even started. He kind of raised a similar question. The language purposely is pretty vague, related to economic development. The one thing that, and to answer your question, I don't, maybe one or two of us or all of us or none of us will be around when the road is actually paid off. But you can bet that there will be another use for the money in some form. And the question becomes then, well, what is that form? Is it more development? I mean, like we're talking about tonight, a road to the commercial park, or another new commercial park that we've invested in and we need to develop that. Or the question was brought up, and I think we ought to address it publicly, well, what about if your sewer line, an existing sewer line, crashes? Is that a use for the money too? I think there's a distinction that needs to be made, and the distinction that we made prior to, that I made with David, was that existing infrastructure and that sort of thing, we believe does not fit the definition for utilizing these monies to make those repairs. But what may fit, very well may fit the definition by vote of the council is new infrastructure. For example, a new sewer line out at the commercial park to feed a business
certainly, we believe fits the definition of how these monies could be used.
Or an upgrade,
Thank you.
for a potential development.
Right, go ahead, say it.
Or if, you know, if you had a potential development and your, you know, sewer line was, you know, didn't have the capacity to serve, you know, you might wanna upgrade that sewer line to serve a development that might be, you know, wanting to come in, but because of the sewer line being insufficient, you know, they can't. So that'd be a way, that'd be economic development.
Thank you.
The original purpose, the language for the original purpose, use of funds has not changed. It just has been added to.
But I understand it, I understand when you wrote it vaguely for a purpose.
And the second round is vague as well. There's no reason to cover it up, it is what it is. Other questions?
This language was actually given to me, as I remember, by Bud Hollingsworth, and I read it, and I said, really? And he said, yes, exactly, word for word. So, I mean, that's where it came from outside my mind. Which isn't, it's not bad. It just didn't come. Yeah, I mean, it came from Perry, it didn't come from me.
It didn't come from Enid.
It didn't come from me, because at that time, yeah.
That's right, came from Perry.
Came from Perry.
Betty?
I was just wondering, is it possible to put like a 5-year term in it to where we have to come back and revisit it, just look at it again?
The short answer
And see
is,
if it's working or if we need to change it or?
Well, it is, but the
I was
city
gonna give a
council,
short answer.
but the city council
Just
can repeal it. Can repeal it at any time,
Well,
as
you know,
long as
once you put a
there's
tax
not
on, it's
debt.
never gonna be repealed. That's all I'm saying.
No.
You know,
I
unless you
put a
put
sunset
something in
in it,
there
you
that
have to-
says.
I've had taxes repealed.
If you just wanna come revisit it, that's still not doing away with it.
Well, it makes you come back and at least look at it.
I hate, actually I don't hate. You have to use the word practical when we're talking about this. And the practical, in being practical, we're putting this on because we have a need to find money for economic development. And hopefully, we will always have that need. If we didn't think in the future that we would have that need, then certainly it makes sense to put some sort of sunset on or to revisit. But the truth of the matter is that we'll always have the need for infrastructure and a financing mechanism for that infrastructure. I hope, if this community is going to continue to succeed long after.
Well, I'm just thinking if the pipeline goes away or the oil field goes away and hotels are struggling, I mean, maybe that's something that we need to come back and look at, that's all I'm thinking about.
And as Bryce pointed out, that can be done.
This council can repeal
Appeal.
the tax as long as there's not a note.
Right, that
Yeah,
it's pledged to.
can't do it with debt.
Other questions or comments? Good discussion tonight. You completely forgot about the football game by now.
7-0.
Who?
Alabama.
Alabama.
Notre Dame's 33rd.
I'm recording it. All you electronic people, you get it. Other questions? We'll stay focused.
Why you
Is
hear all
this
that buzzing.
residency issue work?
Say again, Lynn?
The residency issue for the motel, you can declare it after 30 days, so that's already written somewhere.
Yes, that's already in the ordinance, and what we're doing is we're repealing that.
So it's just
You know,
local.
Yes, I have to tell you that, that the original ordinance as passed gave the city council the power to make amendments. I don't know if you saw that. Technical and administrative amendments. In Clinton, Russ said that they just went ahead and repealed that permanent exemption, you know, because they were having the oil and gas companies do exactly what we talked about. And I have to tell you that if, we can't do it with respect to rate, okay? But if that becomes an issue here, this body's gonna have to talk about it, because in that first vote, the city council did authorize the council to make amendments to the ordinance. I just think it's better to ask the public. You have to ask the public with respect to the rate, okay? While we're asking that question, we probably ought to try to remove that exemption.
Motion to approve the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve ordinance number 2013-02, amending chapter 7 of the Perry Municipal Code 2004. Will there be discussion?
I have one.
Betty?
If they vote it down, can we still get the residency taken off?
In my opinion, we can.
Okay.
In my opinion, we could, by legislative action, we could do that.
Okay.
But I do think it's best to ask the public.
Okay.
Further questions?
Since we've chosen to go a different direction and the council put the TIF district ball in motion, shouldn't it be the council that takes it out of motion?
Well, it remains in motion.
Okay,
It remains in motion.
One of the big problems with it is that the revenue that would be generated is $15,000 a year. Okay, and that is not and the length of the TIF, okay, is normally in most TIFs not longer than 10 years. Okay, so the ability of that TIF to actually fund this project is it's not able to. I mean, it's not able to.
But to further answer your question, it remains in motion. I respectfully asked Mary not to pursue that until we got any further, until we got a direction from the council tonight on this. Because had she allowed it to continue, we would have racked up fees with Bryce and Russ that would have been wasteful if we were successful in this action. Does that make sense? And so I felt it prudent if we could hold off for a period of time to see what the action was tonight, so that we didn't rack up charges that we couldn't get back, as a result of going forward with the TIF. It still remains ongoing. If we're not successful with this, while it only may raise $15,000, that's $15,000 more than we would have had, and we'll continue on with the TIF. So I wanted to answer that. It just didn't make sense to me, in the hopes that this might take flight, to rack up charges with our attorney proceeding with the TIF.
I know in some cities that we've stayed in, some taxes are exempt from certain tax exempt entities. Is our hotel motel
Yes.
tax exempt?
Yes, government, permanent residence,
Okay.
and there's a third one.
Church.
There may be churches. I can't.
I don't think it's churches, I think it's,
Nonprofit, maybe.
I don't think it's that, but I think it's government, state,
State and federal's one
State and
exemption.
federal.
Permanent residence is one, it's the third one. And I forget what it is.
Further questions? Additional questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. A yes vote approves the ordinance 2013-02, amending chapter 7. A no vote sets it aside. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes, now a motion on emergency.
an emergency.
Second.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Brad. We have a motion second on emergency. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement, Duke,
Yes.
Norman,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Wade, Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes. Now we move to approval of proposition number 2, which places the question on the ballot in the special election for April the 2nd.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second to place the proposition number 2, the question, on the ballot for April the 2nd. Everybody understand what they're voting on? Questions or comments? Now I'll vote.
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Norman, Nation,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes. Okay, I'm pleased to report that we're about halfway done. Set back, folks. Okay, item number 11, which is to receive the Perry Planning Commission recommendation on permittable paving systems ordinance. Council members, as is customary, the Planning Commission took up the discussion on the permittable pavement systems ordinance. We are honored tonight to have the chairman of the planning commission with us this evening that I know is prepared to give us an update. Item number 11 is purely to receive the recommendation of the planning commission along with their background information, and then item 12 will address what you want to do with it as it relates to the ordinance. Jim?
I'm going to defer to our counsel,
Very good.
Mr. Payne.
David Payne.
Okay, thank you.
David.
Jim's already had his time up, so. You'll recall this situation came up previously. We have had requests in the past from business owners to use gravel for various purposes near their business. We were not able to grant that permission because we didn't have a code that allowed that. Some good examples might be the truck stops where they have already met their requirement for parking with paved area. Then they want an additional area that would be probably cost prohibitive to pave it in concrete. They'd like to just provide gravel, or in this language, it's a permeable surface. We have specifications on what that amounts to, the subbase and the gravel and all of that. So this would be used in a review process. Could be allowed by the planning commission there, and then by the council in certain instances for additional parking. And you'll notice that it says is only applicable to overflow parking. We're not talking about storage yards. But we think that it would be a good option to exercise in those certain situations. So, any questions about that?
I thought this was gonna be for, they weren't gonna allow it for overflow. Are you saying you're gonna allow it for overflow?
It wasn't
Yes.
brought to.
It would just be for overflow, meaning once they have met the required paved parking requirements for so many parking spaces on a paved surface, if they need additional overflow, then this could be used for that additional overflow.
So that would mean like if Walmart decided to gravel that property to the west of them, they could, because they've already got their parking spaces?
Yes.
Exactly.
They could with the approval by the planning commission
Right.
and the city council.
Yeah, it'd still have to come to the review process and be approved by both bodies.
See, I don't mind the gravel as long as it's where you don't see it. I don't think it needs to be on a main road. I don't think it needs to be for a restaurant or
Those-
Walmart or anything like that.
I've spent a lot of time looking at this, and I'm on the planning commission, and, you know, my vote shows up on here. I don't think we have that option. I think if we pass it, that if someone wants to gravel on Fur and the new commercial park or downtown, well, downtown may be a bad example, but I don't think we have an option of choosing that. I think if they meet the minimum on non-permeable surface, I think they can have all the gravel they want. That's my opinion, the way I read it.
Well, I think it's written so that it would still have to go through the review process.
But if you're saying it's okay now with this, why would it not be okay when they come to you?
Then you're being picky and choosy.
Because of considerations like was just pointed out, it may be turned down.
Well, how can you tell one person they can have it and the other person can't?
Or
Well-
city government. Well, those
Yeah.
factors, those
That's what you
factors
do.
are set out under D on page 2, and we did list factors. And those factors are like, Mr. Dement said, and like Betty said, it wouldn't be appropriate on Fur, okay? And that factor would be intended location, yes.
But
Aesthetics
this-
consideration.
The one that we're talking about is Subway, which is on-site.
Well, no, we're not, you don't have that in front of us, in front of you right now. On this agenda, we've got the Harry Hughes one, which is on, what's that street?
15th.
Yeah, on 15th Street.
They've already laid it.
Yeah, and that's you're right.
But they can't park on it now.
But we'll address that one here in a little bit,
On the Harry Hughes.
on the Harry Hughes.
If-
this is a standalone deal, would you want to add to our paving recommendations, a permeable paving?
See, David and I went through a very lengthy debate related to this, and I think we both enjoyed it to a degree. And Betty, if you or anybody else around this council table, their concern is aesthetics, okay? And David and I debated this. But you take a piece of property to the west side of Walmart that is owned by Walmart, okay? As long as that they are not putting any mud, any water changing the runoff, that would harm people next to them, okay? They have every right now to convert grass to gravel, and there's nothing we can say about it.
Right.
Well,
What
and
this
I don't-
does is this gives us more control over when gravel is put down specifically for overflow parking. Just like in your yard right now, if we lived in Arizona, you wouldn't see any grass yards, you would see rock yards, or dirt. You have every right now to strip your yard of its grass, and fill it with crushed gravel, or asphalt, or whatever you want.
And if you have visitors, they can park on it.
And if you have visitors, they can park on it.
But that's not commercial.
This actually, well, even commercial, the commercial people have the same right, okay? Now. What this does, if they want to use it specifically for overflow parking, which I believe is truly the only reason somebody would want to do that, then they have to come through the planning commission and the council for approvals, which is a lot more control than we have now.
And see, I have no problem with behind Walmart, cause I don't see anybody looking at it. But I do like along Fur where they're building new places. I've had complaints from some people who have built along Fur that they're not happy with the fact that some people wanted to put gravel there, because they were already concrete.
But again, let me reiterate, okay? And in the case that you're talking about that came before this council last, and this was the big debate that David and I had, they have every right to put gravel there now, and there's nothing this community can do about it unless it
Then why do we
creates.
deny it?
But they can't park on it.
They can't park on it,
Can't use it for parking.
which means that the police would have to constantly watch it, and it would take a call by the police or the code enforcement people to go out and tell them that their car has to be removed. So if they're just aesthetically concerned about the look of gravel, which is what you continue to refer to, they have every right to do that now.
I
Would
was,
this change anything like you did last time?
You're gonna have to remind me what we did last time.
We voted not to, gravel for the restaurant.
this is essentially the exact same thing.
Yeah, this is
But they
what, I
can't
think what we
park,
agreed
right?
to is not to approve their site plan, which included the gravel.
Correct.
Right. So,
And-
go ahead,
I
Paul.
would say the municipal code, one thing it talks about on gravel parking, permeable parking, I think, but it referred, one of the reason it doesn't allow gravel now in commercial lots is the hard surface is to control dust. And, which, if you're not parking on the gravel, it's not creating much dust unless it's really windy. We're gonna have it anyway then. But one of the things, and I brought this up in the planning commission meeting, if you can have one person completely compliant, and I'm really pitching against this, but it essentially affects all of their neighbors at that point, who may have hard surface, and I just think we're going backwards doing that, in my opinion.
I agree. What's the definition of gravel anyway? Is it like pea size, 2 inch? What's the language on that?
Well, we actually use the word rock,
Yeah.
And there's a,
not gravel,
there's a
but it's
number-
Class A or larger rock.
Which is?
Matt, do you know?
No.
Class A rock?
No.
Gordon, where are you?
We
We
got
need
10
Gordon.
iPhones
Everybody's
and
gonna
an
put it down
iPad
so we
going
put
right
each in
now,
half.
and nobody can tell us.
Cursor on
I
that.
think it's.
We need Jordan for Kirby and Rock.
I can't get off the football game to look it up. We're talking about everybody.
So what you're saying is, right now, we can't tell them whether they can put gravel or rock in their parking lot. But we can tell them they can't park on it.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's crazy.
And so, and again, and it's not
So-
it's not to take issue with either one of you, but again, and the way I look at it, we have more control, because again, I say, the only reason that somebody would wanna put down whatever you define gravel or rock as, or asphalt or concrete, would be for the purposes of parking, if they're gonna go to that expense. And if they're gonna go to that expense to do that, it places it under the control now of the planning commission and the city council before they do it.
Let me ask you this, we'll use whoever it was, Betty or whoever said Walmart. Say Walmart gravels that parking lot or that grass area on the west side of the building. And they move all their plants and all that stuff out onto there. It opens up the parking lot.
That's storage, and
That's
you can't,
storage.
you can't store
That's right.
on
That's
it.
what I was wanting to clarify.
That's right.
They basically can't use it,
That's right.
even if they gravel it.
Well, I
Which
mean,
is gonna have weight
with
coming
this
up.
ordinance,
Which is gonna
they
have weight
still
coming
can't
up.
because it's parking.
The ordinance as it's written is parking only,
That's what I'm asking,
and
it's parking
it
only.
doesn't address storage.
That's right. But we actually address storage in other ordinances, which you're gonna see in round 2 of this discussion. Karen?
If you have an area that, and you all have already addressed this, where you have denied somebody to put gravel down, so for extra parking, if I'm not mistaken, but it's grass now, and they use it for extra parking now, and it's not gravel, it's just grass, there's nothing that you all can do anything about that either, right?
That's my interpretation of it, yes.
Yeah, if you're a commercial business and you've got grass, but you want it gravel because you need that extra parking, you deny them doing that. If I wanna come and park on the grass, I can. And
Actually-
nothing can be done.
Municipal code said parking has to be hard surface, so technically, grass would be treated the same as rock or anything else. It's a non-paved surface.
But for a lot of community events where overflow parking ends up in somebody's yard or somebody's grass or our utility easements, you know, it just becomes a matter then of enforcement.
Exactly. And Brian doesn't have anything else to do. But he's good at it.
Well, to stay with the processes and in consideration of time, let's stay with item number 11, which is just to receive the report. Are there any other questions or comments for the planning commission and what their recommendation is to the city council? Any other questions or comments? David, thank you. Further discussion on item 11 before we move on? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 12, which is to consider approval of ordinance 2013-03, amending chapter 12 of the Perry Municipal Code by the amendment of section 12-286E5, permitting permittable pavement systems for off-street parking areas, along with the savings, severability, repeater, codification, emergency, etc. Council members, this is pretty self-explanatory. You've heard this is the recommendation from the Perry Planning Commission. And the question now becomes, what would you like to do with it?
So you're saying that even though they have to come to us and ask us to make that a parking lot? That's what you're saying?
If you approve this ordinance.
Which exercises more control on our part.
Exactly.
It does set forth standards, which, when
We
we talked about this,
currently don't have.
which we currently don't have. And it also includes factors that can be taken into consideration by the planning commission and by the city council about, each situation's gonna be unique, more than likely. It's, from one situation to the next, it's gonna be a little bit different situation. And the standards and the factors that you can take into account allows a lot of flexibility on the part of the planning commission in their decision-making and their recommendations to the city council, as this is written, in my opinion.
I'll make a motion, we approve, ordinance number 2013-03.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance 2013-03. Will there be continued discussion? Continued discussion or questions? Seeing none, a yes vote approves the ordinance 2013-03. No vote sends it home. Roll call, please.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dement.
No.
Duke.
No.
Norman.
No.
Motion.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Yes. Hall.
And I vote yes. Motion passes. Now a motion on the emergency.
Move to declare an emergency.
Second.
We have a motion second on the emergency. Roll call, please.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dement.
No.
Duke.
No.
Norman.
No.
Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes, I believe that fails. Yes, the motion on emergency fails. All right. Now we move to item number 13, which is to receive a recommendation from the Perry Planning Commission on the application of Harry Hughes and Mabel Hughes. David, you can,
I'm gonna do this
back
one.
to the chairman.
This one's mine. This evening, we met, had a public hearing on the request from Harry Hughes and Mabel Hughes to rezone the tract of land on 15th Street behind Walmart. There is a building on there now. It's on the west side of 15th. If you're not familiar with that area, everybody understands where that is? Okay. The request was to rezone it from C1 to C2, commercial 1 to commercial 2, and we recommend to the council that that piece of property be rezoned. Another issue was the respect to the site plan, and the site plan as presented was adequate but not totally there that we needed, but we did clarify one thing, and that is that the site plan recommendation by the Planning Commission covers 1 acre of ground, which includes the building and the concrete only. Does not include the gravelled section already, and does not include the road cut. The road cut that is already on the property was put in by Mr. Hughes at his expense. He plans it as a private road with later, if it meets standard and meets council approval, would then be turned over to the city of Perry. So our recommendation on the site plan is for approval of 1 acre of land that includes a building and the concrete surrounding it.
Now, thank you, Jim. And I'm standing up there because you may have additional questions. And I hate sidebar discussions, and Bryce and I just had one, so I want to tell you exactly what it was. He told me, what his concern was, and he wasn't at your meeting at 5 o'clock today. His concern was, since the emergency didn't pass and there's already rock on the west side, he has a concern with that because our new ordinance is not going to go into effect for a period of time.
Yes,
and I
concern.
cut him off because I wanted to tell him that they're well within their right to put rock there. They just can't park on it. And they have no intention, as reported in the Planning Commission meeting, to park on that. They want to use a portion of that rock for a turnaround for the trucks. And I think that's why you made it clear in your presentation that this is a 1 acre piece of property, which includes the building for which they will be storing the product in the building.
That's correct.
They have parking, paved parking on the south side, on the north side of the building. and they're gonna use a portion of the rock that's already there for turnaround or ingress and egress, but there'll be no parking there, and the code enforcement officer is aware of that.
Yes.
So
Clear you up?
A private road or drive on my property doesn't have to conform to city code.
It does not have to conform to city code as long as you don't try to give it back to the city.
Right.
You can put in any kind of road you want to on your own private property. If it were to be, say, Mr. Hughes came and said, I would like to turn this over to the city could reject it
Right.
as non-conforming to the specifications as we have currently.
So at no point can he park a vehicle on the rock or store anything on that rock.
That's correct. That's as we is that not true, Bryce? As the site plan approval process, I just.
And what is considered parking? That's what I want to know. 5 minutes or 3 hours?
Should make a plan commission be one.
Should have, I was prosecuting cases. I apologize.
Because parking to me, not trying to interrupt you, but if you have a business and you deny them parking, they can't park there, okay? If you grant them parking, a customer has to park there for 20 minutes, go in and be a patron at that store and come back out. That's the difference between not parking and parking. So what is parking and not parking at this place? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, it seems to, the reason I spoke to the mayor was that, you know, the ordinance that was passed has not gone into effect yet. The emergency did not pass. If the emergency would have passed, we would have immediately posted it, okay? And then it would have been effective immediately, okay? You know, the purpose of that was to allow that rock to be used as additional parking under this, if in fact the planning commission recommended that, or if the city council approved that.
No, let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
See, that's what you missed in the
I
meeting.
know, I was-
And let me clarify, you're right, you were working to prosecute on behalf of the city of Perry. It was not a
Yes.
slam to you for missing the meeting.
Right.
So I apologize if it was taken that way.
No.
But the applicant made it clear to the planning commission.
That's correct.
That is not intended to be overflow parking.
Yeah, and his statement was that when the trucks pull in there, they go through the building and come out and back around. They needed to have a area there of solid surface that the trucks wouldn't get mired down in and wet.
So if they're going through the building, they're not touching the gravel.
They're not going through the building.
Essentially, they're going.
That's what you said. You just said they go through the
They're
building.
going.
Around.
They're going around the building. They're just
They're
loading
going
out.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
I don't
But
think
then
the
if they're
doors
using,
are
are they using the rock as a drive? Because
That's what he
drives,
said. He
because
said
drives,
they
because
put that
drives,
giant lot out there, so they'd have a place to turn, to make it all the way around the building.
okay, well,
Well,
drives, as you know, drives
Drives aren't allowed with
have to be permanently surfaced.
Oh, mercy.
I mean, all that we were creating here was this, this overflow parking, at least in the way it was drafted, the overflow parking amendment. Drives have to be permanently surfaced. Places where you're gonna store materials, you know, have to be permanently surfaced. And that is the distinction between the last ordinance that we had, that had no variables in it, that had no factors in it, and this one. One of the things is that we limited, and that one did have the words overflow parking, but we made it even more specific in this, that this one didn't apply to drives, that this one didn't apply to material storage or the like. Now, the question is, you know, the real question is, how would we enforce this? You know, but let's just say that the vehicles are out there parking. Okay, how would we enforce it? I suppose we can enforce it by way of a violation of the site plan that carries a $250 fine. You
Well,
know,
the part we're talking about doesn't fall under the site plan.
That's
It
right.
wasn't. It was specifically excluded.
and
We
that's,
didn't do anything with
and
the
that's
part
the
that's
part with the
gravel.
rock.
Yes.
The
That
back
was
part
excluded
that's
from-
mostly gravel, the lot,
So,
was excluded.
So we
So-
can come back in
So
30
you-
days and redo it?
well, this again is one of the areas of the planning commission that we want to be prudent in our exercise of time. So that's the whole problem.
Is this ready?
We excluded the gravel area, so no, they cannot drive back through there by site plan.
I'm crashing here.
Well, it's 1 acre, but it was gonna had enough room to go around the building on the west side, is what he said. But they over gravelled it apparently,
Yeah.
if that's a term.
There seems to be a lot of questions, several questions that need to be addressed and answered.
Yeah.
Let me set the stage for why this is here so quick. It was an attempt to do a good thing. It seems like that, that through time, the scoldings that we get sometimes for people making applications with the city council and the planning commission, et cetera, is the time that it takes to get things approved. And so we were doing our best to try to expedite and be quick about a turnaround on a request made by a citizen. I think that this could serve us as a good education, that while we want to be as quick and expeditious as we possibly can, we want to make sure that all of our questions get answered too. And so there's a little dance that needs to take place. And it's my belief that we need to continue to dance.
Yes,
And one other thing.
I don't really have answers.
If I may, another part of that is that when we do write the specifications, we need to write the specifications very specifically. Because anytime you have, if you got a map that says I'm gonna be 150 feet from the lot line, but I don't know exactly where that is, sorry, but we've got to help the customer to build their business as quickly as possible, but yet within the guidelines to make everybody, give everybody an equal shot at it. So, specificity.
Okay,
But can't we go ahead and approve the 1 acre in the building?
well, I think that's where a lot of the questions are.
I think we need to-
Because it includes, go ahead, Ron.
I would say, one of the things that I like the idea of continuing is we've specified 1 acre. Is that one wide, narrow acre, or one narrow, deep acre? I would like to have a legal description on that acre so that we know exactly what we're talking
Yes,
about.
that's
The
exactly
1
right.
acre
Yeah.
is because that's the lease with the tenant.
Yeah.
Proposed
Exactly,
tenant.
and that would be the legal.
And so, we should be able to get that.
Did you say though, in the beginning of your explanation, that the 1 acre only included the building and the concrete?
That's my understanding, that's correct.
Okay.
And that we'll have to look at the lease to make sure that yeah.
Yeah, and the
And
ish, I
that-
think,
there is
you're
the
gonna
problem.
see that the tenant and the leasee are believe that they have the right to be able to take those trucks around the west side and exit out the south side.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be on the rock, which is what creates the questions, which I think is the desire of the council to get those answered before we look at this any further. Jim, thank you for your time. That was item number 13 was to receive the recommendation by the planning commission. I believe we've done so. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll turn to item number 14, which is consider approval of the ordinance 2013-04. And I believe some council members have some direction they want to take that. Like table it?
Table it.
I second.
I'll make a
If that's a
motion.
motion,
I'll
I'm
make the
seconding.
motion to table ordinance 2013-04.
That's the second.
And that's the second, and to ask staff to address some of the
That
questions and
too.
concerns.
If
that
you'd
were
give
brought
me
up
time
this
to
evening.
talk.
Well, go ahead and finish. Okay, we have a motion and a second. If I can repeat what it was that Bill was trying to say. That is that we have a motion and a second to table consideration of ordinance 2013-04, giving staff time to address some of the questions and concerns that were brought about as a result of the recommendation by the planning commission. Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, we move to a vote.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Yes.
Norman.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Wade.
Yes.
Yes, item number 15, new business. Any new business needs to be taken up? Seeing none, we move to item number 16. Let's not do it.
Yeah, that's good.
We don't have a need to convene into executive session. We can move to straight to item number 19.
Motion we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion second to adjourn. Roll call.
Stroller.
Yes.
Yes.
I thought about telling you.
I wanted to come